guys, to our first cooking video. I think we're gonna name it A Gamer's Guide to Pulled Pork. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's run that as an intro. Alright folks, first thing we're gonna start off with is our pork butt here. This one is roughly 6.5 pounds, but it all depends on how many people you want to feed. But remember, the first thing to do is wash our hands, put on gloves, and we'll just make it seem like magic. So, there we go. First thing we're going to do is cut off this thick fat. Under normal circumstances, many people leave it on, but personally, I remove it for two essential reasons. First is because we're going to be removing the fat layer before serving, so no one gets that big glob of blubber that no one wants. The second reason is because removing that fat prior to pulling the pork will also remove any seasonings and smoke flavoring. So basically, you'd be taking away flavor. Now, as you can see, I still left the thin layers so the meat stays intact and still provides flavor, so don't freak out on me now. Now, we move on to the fun part, seasoning this thick butt. We have two seasonings we're going to rub the butt with. First is our hardcore carnivore, and the second is our appropriately named pig ass rub. While we have it in hand, we're going to go and hit it with the pig ass rub first. It's a great seasoning for any grilled item, not just pork. The blend has a great balance of savory season, slight tangy citrus flavor, and is a little more special because it contains Worcestershire in the blend. Now I bet you're wondering, Drake, why would I be watching a cooking video from a gaming channel? My response is pretty well, you guys are always watching me play games, but I kind of want to provide that just because you're a gamer, it doesn't mean you can't have skills outside of video gaming. Plus, if anyone makes fun of you for watching someone else play video games, you can at least tell them, hey, my YouTuber is also a chef. So, take that. Now, we're going to douse it in one of my favorite blends, the Hardcore Carnivore. I'll link its page down below in the description along with the pig ass rub. Both of them are great, highly recommend. This seasoning provides both great flavor, being that it's not too salty or spicy, and also makes a beautiful crust on the grill, a nice dark outside. Highly recommend, 10 out of 10. I bought this multiple times, so you can trust me. Alright, now that this bad boy is all seasoned, let's go light the grill, get those coals hot, and get ready to put on the smoke. Alright, now that the coals are finally white, let's go ahead and add our wood. But I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to use these wood pellets instead, because they can do just the same, and I forgot to soak the regular wood. Now, I roughly have about 1 cup of maple bourbon smoking pellets that I'll be pouring onto the coals directly. You'll notice that they don't immediately catch fire, and that's okay, because the coals underneath have actually cooled slightly past the point of high heat. Now, we're going to make sure we move the grates back over, because we got to put our meat on the grate. Can't put it directly on the coals. And we're also going to shut the lid, let ambient heat build up in there, make sure it gets nice and hot. And I'll go grab the meat, I'll see you guys right back out here. Alright, now that the smoke is built up in our smoker, go ahead and, oh god, look at that smoke, ooh. Perfect, we like that. We'd love to see it. Oh, a little bit of flame. No worries though, keeps it hot. So first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and put our meat on the grill, but not directly over the heat. We want off the side, get some of the smoke built off the side so it doesn't burn on the bottom. Now, we want to make sure we pat it down, but we're also gonna make sure we have the fat side up. This side is obviously the side that was not had the fat cap originally, so we gotta flip it back over. And we're going to cook it that way, so that way any excess fat drips down the meat, and it'll actually keep the meat moist and keep it from burning too much. But we still want that nice black coloration on the outside. We're going to let flavor build, and don't worry about the flame, because it will actually die off when we close it whenever the smoke builds again. But for now, it's just getting extra oxygen, catching fire, that's fine. Go ahead and close the lid, and importantly, make sure you have a small vent opening on your grill. Otherwise, there'll be too much smoke buildup, your flames can die out, your coals will actually die quicker. We want it to actually stay pretty hot, roughly around 250 degrees. Alright guys, about 2.5 hours have passed, and look at that coloration. Oh, the fat's coming out from underneath. That's a good sign. That means it's actually coming out. Not too much of a problem. Beautiful coloration on the outside. Now let's take her in the kitchen and finish her up. Alright guys, welcome back to the kitchen. Now as you can see, I have my pressure cooker here, and I have the meat finished off. And as you can see, the meat's done. beautifully smoked, beautiful coloration. Oh, look at it. Anyway, getting back to it, we have about 2.5 quarts of water in our pot, and we're gonna go ahead and add some other stuff so that way it doesn't rob any of the flavor from this meat right here. So first off, we're gonna add is some apple cider. Not apple cider vinegar, just regular apple cider, about 1.5 cups. We have a tablespoon here of our pig ass rub seasoning to add back to the flavoring so that way we don't ruin it. We're gonna pop that in. Next, we're gonna have a tablespoon of both onion and garlic powder. Powder specifically, not granulated. We have also about 1.5 cups of brown sugar, light brown sugar, not dark brown sugar. If you use dark brown sugar, it has more of a tendency to burn, especially in high temperature situations like a pressure cooker. We are gonna go ahead and add more flavoring with our salt and pepper based flavors, obviously. We're gonna add a pinch of salt to the water as well, along with about 3 to 4 teaspoons. Depends on how much you actually prefer pepper in the food that you make, of course. Now, before we add the meat, we need to make sure that we mix this all in thoroughly, so that way there's not big chunks of seasoning in there. So we're gonna get a nice whisk, and we're gonna whisk it all together first. Make sure it's all properly incorporated, no chunks of brown sugar. Tap that off, set it to the side, and now we're going to take our meat and put it directly into our solution here. Make sure it is pushed all the way in. Do not allow it to sit too tall, otherwise the meat will not cook properly. Throw any extra little bits you have in there, and make sure you go and wash your hands after you touch it. That's better. Now that our hands are properly cleaned, we can go ahead and put the lid on top of the meat and get it going. Now, make sure whenever you're doing this that you have it set so that the lid is perfectly square on here, like I am obviously not doing. But there we go. Now we got it. And also remember, it's plugged in. Now, it doesn't have to cook too long. It may seem like a long time, but we're actually going to have it going for about 1.5 hours here. So roughly 90 minutes. Give or take about 10 minutes, because some larger meats take a more amount of time than the other ones. Usually I cook about a 5-pound one, so this is about 1 pound more, so it's probably going to take a little bit longer. But in the meantime, while this is working, I'll also show you guys how to make a homemade honey barbecue sauce. So let's go ahead and skip right to that. Alright guys, let's make some barbecue sauce while we have our pork starting up right here. First off, we're going to start off with is 1.5 cups of light brown sugar. Next, we're going to do equal parts of garlic and onion powder, 1 teaspoon of each. Next, we're going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of ground mustard, 1.5 teaspoons of chili powder, and black pepper. You can just drop in the bowl because we'll need about 1 tablespoon anyway, because, you know, why not? We'll add a little extra pinch just because we can. For a little extra tang in the barbecue sauce, we'll add roughly about 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. It'll just pull it all together without making it too dense in sugar content. We're gonna add roughly a 1/2 cup of honey to it. Make sure you try and get most out of what you can. Next, we're gonna add 4 cups of ketchup. And lastly, we're gonna add a 1/4 cup of liquid smoke. I prefer to use pecan, but you can also use other flavorings if you want. Some use hickory, some people prefer applewood. I just prefer the flavor of pecan liquid smoke better. Now we're gonna whisk it, mix it, make sure there's no lumps, and get it fully incorporated until it turns into, well, honey barbecue sauce. Now that we are done with the barbecue sauce, we just gotta wait that 1.5 hours for our pork to get done. Now what can we do in that amount of time? Alright, 1.5 hours later, our pulled pork is done. You can see it's already shredded in the pot. We're gonna take these nice tongs here and we're gonna transfer it to a bowl so we can go ahead and pull it apart. Make sure you're careful because it is falling apart, so we don't want to create too much splash damage on this. And also make sure that you skim the bottom of the pot. Make sure there's no little pieces in the bottom. You don't want to lose any of that extra meat. Work so hard for it, might as well have it. And a surefire way of knowing that your pork is done, your bone comes out clean, for the most part. Some pieces still get cooked on whenever you're grilling it or smoking it, so don't worry about it too much, but it comes out clean relatively. Make sure you go ahead and just throw that away. I think you can also give it to your dogs if you want, but there's too much sugar in this for me to give it to my dogs, we'll be honest here. Now we'll go ahead and shred it up. Go ahead and grab a second pair of tongs, your hands, or whatever you want to use to pull it apart. I decided to use 2 pairs of tongs because it's easier and it's too hot for me to handle with my hands currently. Make sure you get all those big pieces constructed down so that way there's not big chunks in the sandwiches of anything. We don't want that. That'd be a little weird. Make sure you give it a taste. Make sure it's good. Another thing we're going to do is add some of the juices back to the pork so it doesn't dry out. This will also help with reheating it and storing it so that way it also retains its flavor and its structure. Make sure you give it a quick mix and it should be good to go. Then we move on to building the sandwich. Alright, now that we got everything cleaned up and we have our bun set, we're going to take our nice shiny bread knife here, make sure it has serrations, and most would cut their bun in a sideways pattern, but we're not going to do that because we're going to do it easier. So we're going to flip it on its side and we're going to cut straight through the center so we get a nice even cut. Alright, now that our bun is perfectly cut in half, look at that, nice even cut, no worries about it. We're going to go ahead and toast the bun so it's not raw. Alright, now that our bun's toasted, we can go ahead and build the sandwich, make that delicious pulled pork. First thing we're going to do is going to take our barbecue sauce we made earlier. We're going to put a tablespoon roughly on both the bottom and the top, smear it around so it doesn't shoot out the sides whenever you push the sandwich together. We're going to take our pulled pork, we're going to get a nice scoop of it, and hello, Tazwell, back there in the background. No, I'm not giving you any pork. Back to the sandwich, but anyway, we're going to go ahead and make sure we press it down slightly into the sandwich so that way it doesn't fall apart. We're going to flip the bun onto the top side of the sandwich and recenter to the plate, and we're done. Pulled pork. Now, this is just my recipe and the finished product, but you guys are more than welcome to try it yourselves. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later on in the channel.